What is your got caught masturbating story? So this was in university, so I wasn't new to jerkin it by any means. But I was taking a class called apiculture, which is the study of bees and pollinators. Anyway, one afternoon, I'm going at it by myself in my room at the place I was renting. It's a older house, so the doors had no locks. My roommate knocks on my door right around the time I was almost done my task, and he said, "Hey, what are you doing?" I just say, "Reading my bee book." Then he just opens the door, and I'm standing up facing my computer with my junk in my hand just giving her. I yell, "Get out, I'm reading my bee book." He slams the door and walks away. From then on the slang term was reading my bee book. I learned to never really open the door when I was in the dorms. I was supposed to go to dinner with a friend. She said she was going to take a shower and to meet at her dorm room in 20 minutes. So I do that. I knocked on the door and I heard a muffled "come on in," so I opened the door to see her butt naked sitting on her couch. I slammed the door shut real fast. Turned out she had said, "Just a minute," which admittedly sounds nothing like "come on in," but brains are going to brain. We laughed it off though, but lesson learned. Someone brought a gift to my mom, a neck massage device. You would put it on the neck and it vibrated. I borrowed it and it ended massaging my. It was the first time I masturbated. From that day on, the device became my best friend. We would sleep together, got to the bathroom together, etc. When I tried to give it back to my mom, she said I could keep it, and I was quite happy. In retrospect, better than my cousin who used my uncle's work computer for a school project when he was 12-13, and later, he calls my uncle in asking why there were searches on his work computer for naked 13-year-old girls. Before anyone assumes anything, it was 100% my cousin. To this day, he still has a porn addiction and has since a very young age. The reason he was having to use his dad's work computer was he was banned from the computers at school for a similar issue. Why were all our parents so faffed up about us doing this? Maybe we shouldn't learn about from porn, but as opposed to WHAT, the way they learned about it, maybe let your 10-year-old learn about cream pies from the cooking channel first, right? But don't crucify them if they are curious about nudity, and then find a source to discover it. Personally, just want my kids to understand the anatomy of it all first, and that nudity and wallity are wonderful natural things. And clothing, outside of warmth and protection, are the bastardized aspects of society that we have to deal with. They can come to that last conclusion on their own, but you can't deny the truth in it. And after that, make sure that if they want to learn more about it all, it doesn't start with gaping or some insanely degrading words toward any group of people. Just simple and steady acceptance to something everyone is inevitably gonna do anyway. But instead, you all turn this into some sin that we can only commit after we're 18 and married, only to make more ignorant babies that will grow up ashamed of their bodies. Oh my God, that happened to an old roommate of mine. I left for 2 very quick errands, so I don't know why he thought that was the best time to wonk in our living room. I ended up taking far longer than expected, and when I walked in, he was standing up, pants down, facing the monitor, which had a collage of Victoria's Secret angels on it. That image could not have vanished more slowly. And it was, like, line by line. His pants were back up and buttoned before it was done. I distinctly remember smirking and asking, "Hey, what ya doing?" He didn't say a word. Frankly, the most embarrassing thing was the chaste wunk material he chose. When I was about 11, I technically got caught mashing my meat to SpongeBob. Back then I'd jerk off to those top celebrity beach body compilations on VH1 or whatever, but they had commercials, and I wasn't hanging around for that, so I'd switch to another channel during the breaks, but sort of keep things going. Anyway, the result of this was that my older brother walked in on me, and I had just switched to Nickelodeon. I'll never forget him saying, "to SpongeBob," and leaving the room dying of laughter. Caught after the fact. I was in my early teens when I discovered the joy jacking off. Then my mind was truly blown when I discovered I could beat it up in the shower. After the first week or so of just carelessly painting the walls of the shower with my baby batter, my dad comes into my room and says, "If you're going to blow your nose in the shower, make sure it goes down the drain." I scratched my head and with a confused look I responded, I don't blow my nose in the shower, to which my dad responded, just make sure it goes down the drain. When I was 15, read that the inside of a banana feels very similar to the inside of a vagina. I craft my masterpiece, this makeshift banana sea, and take it down to our half basement when the computer is at midway through about absolutely going to town on this banana, hear a bang on the window above me, and see feet start running. Turns out my best friends decided to come by to hang out, but saw I was busy and ran. Told me the next day they hoped I didn't pack a banana for lunch. Not me, but a good one nonetheless. My wife told me her best friend wanted to invite everyone over to her new pool. We pack up the kids and head over where there are about 5-6 couples, and about a dozen kids, or so. The husband of said friend stated to everyone that unfortunately, he had to leave a little early as he was on call, utility guy, and was going in to shower. In about 10 minutes or so, the lovely summer vibe music over the Bluetooth speaker turned to something more aggressive. It was essentially the sounds of slapping, sucking, and potty talk. That's the first thing that someone said because kids, and then my wife's friend bolted towards the house to end the noises that all kids and flotation devices were asking, "What is that?" So in summary, he does not get to select the music anymore for parties. We got our own computer in 1999 or so. My mom and stepdad were very protective and afraid of viruses. I, however, was using m.a.stur immediately without their knowledge. Files hidden in other files. The usual routine. One day, my stepdad asked me what I use m.a.stur for. I told him it's for music, which he was fine with. I was 11 years old, and he wanted me to teach him how to steal music. I taught him to my own peril, or so I came to believe. After a week or so of my stepdad stealing music, he found a few video files that were hidden poorly. One was a woman sitting on a vibrator, another was 2 women eating each other out. I braced for a punishment I would never forget. Instead, my stepdad, with a smirk, said that he was glad it wasn't anything too intense. A few days later, he was driving my home from somewhere and pulled into a convenience store and let me pick up that month's Playboy with a stern promise that I'd not tell my mom. My birthday was a few days away. My secret gift from his was a stack of back issues of Sports Illustrated Swimsuit Edition. A few years ago, I came home from running some errands on a Saturday. Hubby and oldest were out doing something and wouldn't be home until later. I thought youngest, 14 at the time, was at a friend's house. So, legitimately, I thought I was home alone. I was going to do some laundry, so I went upstairs to grab each boy's dirty clothes. Thinking I was alone, I pushed open youngest's bedroom door and walked right in on him, naked, on his bed, going to town on himself, beating his like it owed him money. He saw me, freaked out, tried to cover up, and screamed, "Get out." I apologized, went back downstairs, and let him do what he was going to do. When he came downstairs a few minutes later, I could tell he was both embarrassed and pissed. I sat him down, apologized for not knocking, and explained that I thought he was at his friend's house. I didn't even mention what he was doing because, really, why bother? Everyone masturbates. He was mad at me for a few hours, but I didn't try to change that. I let him be mad at me. His feelings were valid, and I wanted him to see that it was my fault for not knocking, so I was going to accept it. I was at a friend's house a few weeks ago, hanging out with her and her boyfriend. After a late-night movie, they retired to her room while I stayed in the living room to sleep on the couch. After they were gone a while, I figured it was safe to rub one out. I heard a quiet sound a few minutes into my furious rubbing. I opened my eyes to see her Furbo pet camera was on maybe 3 feet away and activated by my movement. It is tied to her phone with notifications on too. I looked directly at it, then tried to pretend I wasn't doing that. So yeah, I was accidentally a cam girl for my friends. In college, I lived in a house with about 15 other people. One day, my housemate Claire came bounding into my room. I heard her coming just in time to put everything away. As she entered, she asked, "Why are you just sitting there? And why is your computer off? And why is your face so red?" And then it all clicked for her. "Oh, you were jackin', if that grin." If you have seen the SpongeBob episode where Squidward tries a Krabby Patty for the first time, and later SpongeBob catches him enjoying them, asks a series of questions, gets it, then says, "You like Krabby Patties, don'tcha?" You know exactly what I mean. Beat for beat. It went down exactly like that, and we still laugh about it. Love you, Claire. Didn't get caught masturbating, but this was fun. I was like 11 when I got a PC back in 2001 from my grandpa. I fiddle around with it, and got a CD from a friend the day before with some naughty videos. I was transferring a video to the desktop, some lesbian fun. As it was done, my grandpa walked into my room and started looking on the screen. "Are you happy with your new PC?" Then looked at the file, reading the title out loud. I instant just put my hand on the screen thinking like, don't read that. He just looked at me and smiled, and he kept the bro code. Didn't tell my mom or anything. Thanks grandpa, Rip. Copy and paste of my response to a similar question a year ago. My parents had just gotten divorced, and my mom was absolutely not respectful of my personal space or privacy when I was at her house. One evening, I was cranking the old hog with headphones on to limit the sound of the porn I was watching. This also prevented me from hearing my mom yell that dinner was ready, her jiggling my locked door handle, and then subsequently picking the lock on my door. She barged right into the room, literally pulled the headphones off of my head while I still had mine in my hand, and yelled, "Pull your pants up, shut off the porn, and come eat the fucking dinner I made." I was a sophomore in college. My roommate was out due to mono, and after drinking a few beers I had horny tunnel vision, so I locked the door, got my tissues, and didn't notice that a football player friend of mine had come into the room when I was out of the room, drinking, and laid on my roommate's bed, saying nothing, while I treated myself in the dark. Then, as I cleaned up, I noticed him on the bed, while I stood there in my hand. He said, "Don't worry, I won't make you transfer." He did this to 2 other of my friends, and watched, and then waited until the end to tell us he was there. Creepy as favk. I was in a 4-bedroom on-campus apartment. I got up in the middle of the night to piss, and I heard porn on the TV in the living. It wasn't uncommon for porn to be on since it was 4 guys living there, so I made a mental note to check it out on the way back from my piss. One of my roommates was completely naked on the couch with about 15 empty Corona bottles on the table in front of him just beating away. He heard me walk in, looked me straight in the eye, and gave me the 90s sup with the little head nod. I turned around and walked out. He never broke stride with his jerking. Was staying in an apartment that only had a narrow walkway between buildings. There was a window almost directly across from my room, but there was always a curtain that stayed closed. One evening, I was lying in bed stroking, and after a bit, I realized there was an unusual light coming in through my open curtain. Realizing it was only shining on my lower regions, I moved a little so I could what it was. There was a woman next door watching me intently. I was actually very turned on, so I kept going, and quickly came. I waited a little bit and the light got dimmer, so I got up and went to the bathroom to clean up. When I came back, I decided to get a better look into the room, and there, on the bed, this woman is naked and furiously masturbating. She was probably only 10 feet away, and it was actually really wide, and I realized she had gotten turned on watching me. I didn't want her to see me, so I watched from a dark corner until she was done, and she turned the lights off. I was excited to get home, decided to see what happened if I did the same thing. Sure enough, the light came on around the same time. It was just the overhead light in her room, and there she was again, except now, she was naked and masturbating, leaning against the window. I turned a little so she had a better view of me, and I could see her. I decided to go for it, and got brave, and got up on my knees and faced her. She paused for a moment, and I thought for sure that would be the end of it. I waved and smiled and kept going. She smiled and did the same. I had an amazing orgasm, and I think she did too. Because I worked odd shifts, I only ran into her outside a couple times, but she was always embarrassed and quickly went inside. But we ended up sharing that experience a few more times before I had to move for a job. Great memories. I have several, as I suspect most who were very horny teens with the more or less brains attitude do. So I'll reel of the most recent, which happened when I was about 22. At the time I worked in an office, however, it's important to note that the job required me to often get up from the desk to meet people. The company hired out equipment, and I was required to get it for the person and give them the brief run through, sign the paperwork, then give the reception desk their stuff, etc., etc. A lot of the time people would come in early, late for their pickup, or even just entirely unannounced. It's important to note this because it explains why getting one of those random boners at my desk was a problem. It was a really quiet day in the office, maybe 2 or 3 people in, so I figured the best thing would be to go take care of myself in the toilets, and then it would go away, and I wouldn't need to worry about it. So I did pretty much that. Asked the only other employee there if she'd listen out for the phone while I went to the bathroom, walked into a stall, found some choice material, and put my headphones in and got to the act. I must have been taking a lot longer than I realized because the woman from before came into the bathroom to check if I was okay. I presume she knocked and called out both before entering the bathroom and then after, but I didn't hear. She knocked the stall door, but I couldn't figure out if I was just imagining it like when you think someone's calling your name when you listen to music. So then, she pushed the door open, which I had left unlocked in haste, and that was that. I scrambled to cover myself and she made a swift exit going, "Sorry, sorry." We didn't speak the rest of the day, and I think I was probably blushing from embarrassment as much as she was. That evening, she texted my work phone to apologize again, and said she just didn't know what to do or say at the time. We joked about it here and there over the next couple weeks, and after a bit, I asked her out. We had a couple dates, but it didn't go anywhere. Not enough in common really, and both agreed that it was a big risk to date in the workplace anyway. Left that job for a better position elsewhere a few months later and haven't talked to them since. Not me, but growing up in a small town, a rural WW, anytime the EMTs were called, everyone found out why or how. In the 90s, a girl was having relations with a hot dog, and a piece broke off inside her. Being uneducated about or her anatomy, she panics and tells her parents. Her parents, being equally uneducated and not sure what to do, call 911. The EMTs come to her room and assist her to get everything out. Fortunately for her, no one made it an issue. Once word got around about it, sure, folks would embellish the story with each retelling, but her ego wasn't totally bruised. Part of me feels the whole community may have avoided a Carrie-type incident since she wasn't shamed by the community for what happened. Honestly, my most embarrassing one. I was 20. I was working an overnight shift as a security guard for a factory, which was often quiet and not much work to do but watch videos or play games on my phone. Sometimes if I really needed to, I would go to the bathroom to relieve some stress. No worries though, it was one of those regular bathrooms you walk in and lock, not one of those with stalls. However, on multiple occasions the door would have issues and wouldn't lock properly. I'm sure you can see where this is going. Well, about a minute or two in, and I'm just about to finish, one of the supervisors in the factory comes rushing in, pulling the door open. Here I am, sitting on my jacket on the floor, everything out in plain sight. We lock eyes until he has one of those, "Oh favk, someone's in here," kind of moments. There's no way I could just be like, yeah, sorry. I was just no excuses. I was so embarrassed. I still think about when I have those thoughts and I cringe. No one ever knew too. To make matters worse, there's only like 6 women who work there, including myself, versus 400 men. Just grateful it wasn't someone who didn't have bad intentions, I guess. Oh boy, I got a good one. So in NJ, you had to pass this test called the HSPA in order to graduate H's. So during 9th and 10th grade, you took a practice version. I took my practice freshman year, and we didn't get the grades back until the following year. Coincidentally, coincided with the parent-teacher conference. That did not exactly make me look like a model student. My parents' response to this was simple, yet effective. I was grounded until I passed the real test. Now, this meant no video games, TV, cell phone, hanging out with friends, etc. Now, the grounding itself really only lasted a year, but my parents said that I had become such a much more productive member of the family that even when I got my grades up, I was still not allowed to play video games, or use a computer, or have a lock on my bedroom door until I moved out. So after I passed the stupid test, I actually did pretty good. I was allowed all my privileges back, except No lock on your door now. My father really wasn't keen on the whole no lock thing, but my mother was extremely strong-willed. And my father didn't feel like being a soldier all day, and then coming home just to go to war with my mother. They are now happily divorced and remarried, and in wonderful loving relationships. I'm very happy for the both of them. But one day, I was enjoying myself when I heard the front door of the. I freaked the hell out because I heard my dad drop his keys in the bowl. And I knew he'd be coming straight to my room to chat. I really missed the days where we lived together and got to hang out so much I jumped out of my desk chair, ran to the door, and threw my entire weight against it as he was opening it. Now, mind you, computer is directly in front of my door, and had he opened the door, he would have seen the incredibly weird fetish porn I was looking at. He asked me to open the door, and I just kept yelling, "Father, I am in a state of undress." I have no idea why the fact my brain chose those words to come out because I have never called him father in my life. Nor do I speak like a weird Victorian-era child. After the second or third time I yelled it through the door, he walked away, and I quickly dressed myself and yanked the power cord out of the back of the PC. Perhaps a slight overreaction. A moment later, he knocked on my door and said, "Son, are you still in a state of undress?" Then laughed hysterically and cracked the door open enough to throw a doorknob W or lock through the cracked door onto my bedside table, and said, "For whenever you feel like being in a state of undress, you might need this, my beloved child." He then laughed and walked away. I'm pretty sure I put that new doorknob on and cranked out like 4 loads over the course of the next 20 minutes. It was an amazing day.